Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this series we are discussing the OpenTofu, which is a kind of replacement of the Terraform, I would say, because Terraform is no more open source. It is license based now, and OpenTofu is open source still, right? So anyways, let's see what is the agenda for today. So far, we have discussed the basic installation, the multiple providers, how we can do it with the variables, how we can do with the resource attributes and the dependency, right? So, and the code is already available in our GitHub repo, right? So I hope you guys are already cloned it and you are following along with me, right? So that I would say. Let's start from the today. So we will discuss the meta arguments, right? So don't miss today's video. It is very important to understand the lifecycle rules, the count part, and the depends on. So all these comes as a meta arguments, right? Let me write down here. So these are the meta arguments. First one was depends on, right? Which we have already seen in our last video, right? Where we were discussing the resource attributes, right? Because meta arguments is basically what meta arguments is like which you want to change the behavior of the open tofu, right? Like uh, you want to decide explicitly or implicitly, right? Like how open tofu should behave, right? Like these can be used to change the behavior behavior of resources in OpenTofu, right? Like whatever you are discussing, right? Because in last video also we have seen, right? This was the so here what was happening is this resource was created once we have this because this resource depends on this, right? Remember we have discussed the DB server and web server example here, right? So similarly, this is also something like depends on, right? Because here we are changing the behavior of the OpenTofu, right? Like how first it will go to this resource, right? But here it will find the meta arguments called depends on, and what it will do, it will first create this particular thing, right? This logical name it will find, and for which resource or which provider it was, then it gonna create that, and at the end it will do this, right? So here you can see first you can see that it was just checking that refreshing the state, right? Why? Because it is gonna check the desired and the current state, right? So again it will gonna check the first this one, right? So it is saying that refreshing state it is same, then it is going for the local 5, right? So that was the thing we were discussing. So today what we will gonna discuss is that was the I will name it, rather number it. The second one is something called life cycle rules, right? And I think life cycle rules, we have three life cycle rules. First one is because this is a second type of meta argument, right? And under meta argument, we have kind of three life cycle rule. First one is create before destroy, right? Because it will just give you let me first write down and then probably I will just explain. Second one is prevent destroy, and the third one is ignore changes, right? We will see all these in actions now. And the third one is I would say the count, like we have the ability to run like a for loop kind of thing, right? That we will see in the next video. But today we will more focus on the life cycle rules, right? Like create before destroy. What exactly it is saying, right? Create before destroy, like when you want to create a new resource and then you'd want to destroy the previous run, right? What was happening is like we were doing this, right? So what it was doing is it was creating the resource, let's say for an example, so far the default behavior what we have seen is let's say resource 1 was created, right? Then resource 2 was created. But when you run the destroy command, right, what was happening is it was doing in the reverse order. Destroy 2 was destroyed, right? And then resource 1 was destroyed. So that's how that this it was working, right? But now we can change it, right? What we can do is like whenever we are doing something changes, right? Or there was a slight different. Let me show you. Let's say I am updating the length here is 3, right? Now let's say tofu apply. So what it is saying that random pet value is changed, right? Now you can see what it is doing. It is just destroying first, right? Create before destroy. It is destroying first and then it is creating it. I want to change this default behavior, right? Then I can put a lifecycle rule called create before destroy. So what it will make sure is it will make sure whenever you are doing some changes in any of the desired state, right? First it will create that resource and then once that creation was successful, then the existing resource was will be deleted, right? Prevent destroy is something where you want to put a kind of lock, right? Lock in your resource, right? Like whenever you are changing something, right? So you can put this prevent destroy as a lock for that resource. Like whatever the new changes will be there, that apply command will not give any effect to that, right? But here is a catch that I will explain once we do this, right? And the third one is obviously the ignore changes. Ignore changes is something, let's say you have changed something manually, right? And you don't want to uh, open tofu to detect those changes and maybe replace it, right? So that's what that ignore changes is, right? So let's see. First, create before destroy, we will see in action, right? So what I will do is I will probably create a file again, okay? Just we will keep it simple. So I would say 06 hyphen uh, life cycle rule 1.tf. Okay, and I'm gonna put this and I will name it to rule 1.txt. Fine. Okay, and we are learning create before destroy, and here we can close the thing. Now you will say, okay, this will gonna be a kind of no changes, right? Let's run it. Tofu apply. Obviously, it will gonna yes, this logical name, right? So depend file will say rule one. Okay. Now let's run it. This time it is running, right? And I would say yes. So obviously there was nothing. So obviously it will go and create it, and the rule one file was created, right? Now let's say I am changing it. Fine. Destroy one, and I'm gonna apply it again. This time you can see again the default behavior. First it will gonna destroy and then it will gonna create, and it has changed, right? But I want to change this behavior, right? So what we can do is we can introduce a life cycle here. Which life cycle? The first one which we just talk about. It's create before destroy equal to true, right? Which is a false basically by default. And I am gonna save it, and now I will change it again to destroy, right? And now let's apply. It is saying that you have to replace, right? This time you can see first it was created and then that based on that creation it was destroyed, right? Whereas the previous state, if you see, First it was rule 1 destroying, then it was creating, right? But due to this life cycle, right, first it was creating and then it is destroying, right? So that's what the first rule is, guys: create before destroy. Maybe it is good to know that, right? Sometimes what happen is one added, right? So where is that rule one? Yeah, it was not applied. Maybe let me apply, and it is applied, right? Here it is the rule one, right? So that was the file we were discussing this. But here the thing is that first it was created this the same file, right? And it is, maybe it was not a good example, but just to understand this, right? Because the file was deleted first, right? And again it was creating it. It has created it, right? Rule 1 was created due to this behavior, this previous one behavior, right? But at the end it has ran a destroy, right? So at the same time the same file was destroyed, right? That was the reason that it was not showing that file, and I have recreated it with this. But yeah, this is a create before destroy, and maybe it is a good example, or maybe use case we can say, that whenever we have to create some another database server or web server, but we are not sure whether that the maybe the previous compute, right, or maybe the other dependency are met or not, and we are not sure whether our new deployment will be successful or not. So don't take chance in that scenario. What we can do is we can put this life cycle rules, and we will say, instead of destroy first, let's try to create it, and once it is created, then go for the destroy, right? So that was the case with this. Next, I would say that the rule is the let's say prevent destroy, right? So quickly, I will copy the same thing, and I'm gonna create another file called lifecycle rule 2.tf. Fine, and I'm gonna paste it, and I will change the logical name to resource 2, and I will say rule 2, and we are saying we are learning prevent destroy rule. Fine. And here, instead of this, I will put this name, as the name is saying prevent, right? Prevent destroy equal to true, right? Now let's apply tofu, apply, and obviously it will gonna apply the new changes. And let's say yes. And what it has done is it has added a rule 2, right? Now let's change something in this rule, right? I have changed it. Let's apply one more time. But this time you can see, guys, it is saying that instance cannot be destroyed. Why? Why it cannot be destroyed? Because it has a prevent destroy lock is there, right? It is saying, but the plan calls for the resource to be destroyed. To avoid this error and continue with the plan, either disable lifecycle prevent destroy or reduce the scope of the plan using the target flag. We will discuss what is the target flag. Like, instead of the entire flow, if you want to just run for particular target, then we can see particular resource, right? But as of now, let's focus on this prevent destroy, right? That's what, right? But when I was just introducing this, I mentioned that there is a catch with this prevent destroy, right? See, to put the lock prevent destroy doesn't mean that you cannot destroy it, right? Let's say if you say tofu destroy, obviously it will gonna destroy everything, but I will not say yes. I just want to show you the rule2.tf, right? Instance cannot be destroyed. Probably I think there is an update in this. Instance cannot be destroyed, right? Obviously, that if you see everything was good, but when it reached to rule.tf, right, it is not destroying it. If I will say false, and let's apply now. So here you can see it is destroying everything. right? You can see that destroy all resources 13 to destroy because that was that the total number of resources we are managing, right? But if I'll show you, it will gonna destroy in the reverse order, right? So you can see rule 2 will be destroyed, right? So here you can see this file was will be destroyed with this, right? So local file, you can see all of the local file was created first and then it is destroying it. You can see local file, depend file, file 1, file 2, whatever that we have created, right? But when you put as a true, right? And if you want to apply the changes as well, it will not gonna, because change will also destroy first, right? And then it will create the new one, right? So that's what that prevent destroy is, right? Now let's see the ignore changes. What ignore changes talks about. The third rule is ignore changes, right? So ignore changes is something which will help you to understand, or maybe which will help you to keep your changes which you have done manually, right? Like let's say your resource, your object is getting managed by OpenTofu, right? And if you are changing something, right? Let me show you in that rule one, right? Create before destroy, right? Let's say in rule one, right? I have added something and I have saved it. Now if I apply tofu apply, okay, I need to disable this for a time being. So here you can see it is saying that 1 to destroy and 2 to add. Which will we gonna destroy? Let's see. It is saying that we are learning prevent destroy rule and it is gonna change to this. These dotted we have put as a this one, right? And apart from this, there is one more thing if I'll say yes. So one destroy and two added, right? Here you can see that it was destroyed because it was not matching with this replacement file. Here you can see that, right? This will be created because as per the OpenTofu, there is no file called rule1.txt which is getting the content of this one, right? But we have that different random alphabets there, right? And the other is one because that prevent rule was set to false. Obviously, it was changing this to this, right? So that was that the local changes, it will not survive if you are managing that particular resource with the OpenTofu, right? So what I will do is I will create one more file called ignore changes with the rule 3, right? So far we have done 7. So let me create one more called 08 colon life cycle underscore rule underscore 3 dot tf. Fine. Let's quickly copy this stuff and I will put it here, right? As of now, let me remove this. Or we have already seen, right? Like if it is getting changed, then what will happen is, right? So I would say uh, ignore changes. What changes you want to ignore, right? That we need to define here, right? So what I will do is I will say content. Okay. So I would say we are learning ignore changes. Okay, and I will gonna create rule3.txt and here also the logical name will be rule3. Fine. Now I will quickly create it, right? Because there is no, so obviously it will gonna apply it, right? So there is rule 3. Here we are learning ignore changes, right? But here you can see we are saying this one, right? So let's do one thing. Let's create it or maybe let's change in this, okay? I have changed locally, right? And here I'm saying, okay, ignore changes for this. Let's apply one more time. And it is accepting what? It is saying that we are learning ignore changes. So probably this is not working with the resource local file. Okay, let me see. Yeah, it has reverted. So I need to check. Maybe I'm not sure. This ignore changes, changes. Yeah, and we are saying the content, right? So obviously, or maybe what I will say is I would just keep it without list. I would say content. Okay, let's give one more try. Otherwise, I will give you a use case, right? Like where you can set this. Okay, let's do one thing. Invalid expression. Yeah, that's what that it is not accepting with this in a format, right? So earlier format was correct, but with this it is not working, right? So it is expecting this to be like this. So it is ignore changes equal to content, right? So it will not gonna apply this. But here it is applying, right? I'm not sure why, but let me give you a use case. Let's say, which we will see in XML as well when we start our AWS. Okay, let me copy this. Ignore changes is, let's say you are creating one EC2 instance in AW, okay, in AWS, and you have applied some tag to that particular resource, right? Let's say you have applied OpenTofu server 1, like that something you have applied, right? And you have created that resource with the OpenTofu, right? Now you logged into the AWS console and you have changed this tag, or maybe you have updated, let's say you have add one more tag to that particular box in the AWS environment, right? Now if you come to your OpenTofu and you say tofu apply again, right? So what will it do is it will not uh, change this back to like as per the OpenTofu desired state, what it should be only OpenTofu server 1, right? But you have made one modification manually in the AWS console where you have added one additional tag called development, right? So OpenTofu will detect, okay, there is a changes in the tag, right? And it is not as per the. So what it will do is it will gonna destroy this AWS EC2 instance and create it again, right? And that is something that we don't want, right? Maybe due to some testing POC or some reason, right? You have put this additional tag, right? Which you want to keep it there and you don't want that OpenTofu to be replaced that, right? So in that scenario, what you can do is you can say ignore changes and you can put tags, right? Because if I'll show you how it will be defining that resource, right? Because it will gonna say AWS underscore instance, right? Let's say EC2 one. Okay, EC2 ones I am creating, and let's say you have that AMI Amazon Machine Images, and you have some random ID, right? And like this, they have something. It's not a valid, but just to show you, right? And let's say you have say instance type, then you say T2 dot micro maybe, right? And you have put some tags here, okay? So tags, let's say you have put name equal to same way OpenTofu server 1, right? Like this. And now if you want to open to that you don't want to change this behavior, right? So what you can do is after this you can put this your lifecycle rule ignore, and instead of this you can just say tags. So this way what will happen is this example which we just discussed now, right? It will not gonna change your resource, right? It will ignore the changes for this tag, and resulted your EC2 instance will never be destroyed and will never be recreated again due to this tags changes, right? So this way you can keep your manual modification to this, right? Probably it is not working with the local file, right? Because I have never tried and I just wrote it in the flow of your all these the same file, right? So I just noticed it is not working. But yeah, this is something that we will see once we start our AWS management with the OpenTofu. All right. So yeah, that's it from the today, I believe. We have discussed the lifecycle rule, create before destroy, where if you want to change the behavior of the OpenTofu, instead of destroying first, you want to create first and then destroy. Prevent a destroy if you want to put a lock where you want to don't want to changes anything, right? And ignore changes, obviously we just discussed now, like where you want to change manual change, you want to ignore, right? That's what. All right. So I will meet you in next video. In next video, we'll gonna discuss the data sources, right? So don't miss that. If you haven't seen the previous video where we have discussed a lot of things, so I would strongly recommend go back and change all these things, right? See what we have discussed so far, and we have all these codes are already available in our GitHub repo, right? I will put this repository link again in our description so that you can refer it easily. All right. So if you find it informative, then I would request to recommend it and like and subscribe, and I will meet you in the next video. All right. Thank you.